Welcome to the Building and Growing podcast. We're delighted to have Ava Piscadlo here, who is a content creator and the owner of By Ava Piscadlo. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Lucas. It's lovely to meet you.
You're most welcome. Thanks for joining us. So, Ava, you're the first actual sort of content creator that we've had on the podcast, we're very excited to dive into that. But why don't you introduce yourself and talk a bit about your background just to kick things off?
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess a bit about me. I went to law school, did the whole law school shebang, and sort of had the idea in my head that I'd be a lawyer. So I'm basically grew up in Singapore. I moved back to the UK for university and pursued sort of a law degree as, basically sort of my future career path.
Nice.
So I've been back in London for the last 8 years.
Fantastic.
I travel a lot.
Yes.
I love food. I'm very passionate about sort of hospitality and that sector.
Yeah.
But I think my sort of blog sort of started as a small hobby during university with my partner at the time, sort of posting shaky food pictures in the university kitchen of things we were making, or just local restaurants around York where I went to university.
Okay.
It really was always a passion project for me.
Sure.
I think Instagram at the time, about 7 years ago when I started, was just a sort of social media platform like Facebook.
Yeah.
No one really took it seriously. So I kind of just stay consistent with it. I always let the camera eat first. That's kind of what I like to do.
Yeah, that's a good saying. Eh?
Exactly. And then I think I started, and then I moved back to London to kind of start my professional career, and I continued with my sort of side hobby. And it just sort of blew up. I think Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of these platforms have just, I think in the last 4 or 5 years, have just completely, I think especially since COVID, have just blown up in general. And I think the essence from my success was really the timing of it.
Yes.
And I think if I started it today, it would be a lot more difficult to get to where I am than it was back 7 years ago.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, what a great introduction. And, it's fantastic that, you went to law school and you finished. I actually dropped out of law school.
Did you?
Yeah,
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I felt like it would trap me in Australia. And so, I left and I ran away. But, great grounding. And it's interesting how, people can study one thing but do something completely different. You talked a bit about how you got into, let's say, content creation, starting off with the blog and then moving on to Instagram. Where are you now in terms of, let's say, follower count and any other key metrics?
Absolutely. So I am currently on, I think, 200,000 plus followers.
Wow.
It honestly blew up during COVID.
Yeah.
I think obviously everyone shifted from real life to online.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, I was still sort of focusing on my risk and law career. So I was sort of in between moving to Hong Kong for my job and staying in London. And obviously staying at home and working and not really having too much time to do anything else.
Yes.
I just focused on really blogging in the evenings, content creation, and then during the day I'd do my main risk job.
Yeah.
And so I think obviously just during that time, the followers grew. I started doing more work in London rather than traveling.
Yeah.
So my follower base grew. So about 200,000 followers. And in terms of view count, I think it's about 30,000 per week or per day.
Yeah.
I have to double check that. But
Nice. And do you exclusively operate on Instagram, or do you still have the blog? How does that work?
I mean, I've always loved writing.
Yeah.
I think obviously Instagram is a lot more visual than my website, but I think if I'm sort of just doing day-to-day things, or I'm doing sort of small partnerships here and there, I use Instagram as sort of my main form of content creation. So most of the traffic is through that.
Yes.
Although when I'm sort of doing written reviews for hotels or restaurants, I then move to my website. So that's kind of more paid partnerships, written reviews, and I think I just love writing in general. So if I have something I want to waffle about, website it goes.
Fantastic. So, yeah, that's awesome. And look, I think it provides a perfect segue into the next question, which is, when did the revenue stream begin?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I started this sort of as a hobby, and I honestly didn't take it seriously at all until about probably 2 years ago, or even a year and a half ago, where I was sort of getting partnerships here and there. I mean, I think over the last 7 years, I've built up a very strong network of hospitality clients and sort of people in the industry, in PR, communications. And I just thought, I think my first partnership was with Lavazza for Wimbledon.
Nice.
And that was in 2017. And I just thought, imposter syndrome kicks in.
Yeah.
You know, who am I? Like, I'm just some random, graduate that's just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
And then I think I kept getting sort of paid partnerships and sort of deals to do really amazing work with hotels and restaurants. And I then sort of started to think, actually, a way to financial freedom is to have more than one income stream.
Indeed.
So rather than sort of just focusing solely on my corporate career, maybe sort of try and diverge your focus and sort of do, your day job, your 9 to 7, and then also in your spare time, just try and focus on this a little bit and see where it goes.
Yes.
So, I think it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where I got my first paid partnership.
Nice.
And then it was a bit of a snowball effect. I think they kept coming, and not everything I do is obviously sponsored. I think I've spoken to, for example, certain agents about why they've selected me for a certain campaign.
Yeah.
And they've said it's because your content is authentic.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's sort of what I've tried to remain true to, is just it started as a passion.
Yes.
It will always be a passion. And I think hence why I don't think I'd ever do it full time forever. I kind of always want to have it in, I guess, on the side of my main job.
Indeed.
But I have just resigned from my corporate role, so it's exciting times.
Yeah, indeed. And look, I think it's definitely a form of marketing that a lot of businesses are considering now. So on the, let's say, content creator side, what type of deals or partnerships do agencies come to you with?
So I think I started off being very food focused, but since traveling is sort of, it's an inherent part of who I am. I'm obviously Eurasian, so family lives all over the world. And I just thought, rather than focusing and, I guess, pigeonholing myself very early on and just having food, why not diversify to lifestyle?
Yes.
So my first partnership was Lavazza, so the coffee company, and it was with their Wimbledon partnership. So basically creating content for the day, so attending Wimbledon, showcasing the coffee and sort of their products there. But then other partnerships have included, for example, BMW, where I've worked with them for their Wilderness Reserve partnership. So that's obviously not food, more cars and lifestyle. And I've worked with a few fashion brands, restaurants, hotels around the world.
Yes.
So it's sort of diversified more towards just lifestyle in general, a more luxury lifestyle, I'd say.
Fantastic, All this talk about food is making my stomach rumble. I tried to have a snack before to stave off the hunger, but I should have been more strategic about it.
I'm always hungry.
Yeah. But you must be able to, take your pick from a few different options, with the partnerships. So in terms of, let's say a company's considering, getting an influencer or content creator, what type of deals are preferred by you? Because I suppose I've certainly seen, cost per 1,000 deals, cost per view, revenue shares. But companies always, I guess, try and stack it in their favor, but that doesn't necessarily always align with the influencer or content creator's goals. So what's your view on that?
I think I've been very lucky in the sense that I have had a job on the side.
Yeah.
So I haven't had to solely rely on this as an income stream. So I've been able to pick and choose. And in terms of sort of my fees, depending on the client who's asking, if they're obviously a massive sort of corporate, for example, Lavazza or BMW, who have obviously a bigger budget, or a drinks company, then obviously my rates would kind of tailor a little bit differently to something that's a bit smaller, like a boutique company or a smaller hotel.
Yes.
I mean, it's really about weighing the opportunity and the cost.
Yes.
I think, for example, if I was given like a once in a lifetime opportunity to go to the Maldives and cover an incredible experience, and maybe they didn't have the budget to pay my usual fees, that for me is priceless. Like, I think going on a trip or for example, I went to Istanbul last year for, I did a bit of work for the Turkey Tourism Board.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
And the budget wasn't very big.
Yes.
And it was right before the earthquake. So
I
think it was almost cancelled.
Yeah.
I think it could have been. But just we had the most amazing 6 days, eating away around Istanbul, obviously travel everywhere, staying in, one of the best hotels there.
Yes.
And that sort of experience is worth more money than, for example, for me to say no, you aren't matching my fees.
Yes.
So, but that's my own sort of perception. I think I go on press trips where other content creators take it extremely seriously, and they're very sort of hardball about, you need to match my fees, and then if they don't, then they're not going to be doing the work. So, but I also understand the other side where if it is your main income stream, then you obviously need to pay the bills. So I really just kind of vary on whoever's sort of requesting the services.
Indeed. That sounds great. And look, as we discussed before, Istanbul is one of my favourite cities. And so it's fantastic to hear that, you were helping the tourism agency. That's great. So look, I think one other piece that, people sometimes don't realize about content creation is that what they see is almost the tip of the iceberg. So are you able to talk us through the process of, from, let's say, planning a trip or, a visit out to editing and review? What does that process look like?
Okay, so let's say a press trip. So I usually like to request an individual trip myself, so I can take a family member or a loved one, a friend or a few friends, if they're allowing to have more than one person. I usually try and request a 3 or 4 day stay, because to get the content and then to also enjoy the property and to write a accurate review about it, you need to sort of outweigh. You also want to go there to enjoy the experience. So,
yes.
I don't take it as, I think, strenuously as some others do. Like I went to Iceland last year, and there was a journalist there and a content creator who had like an itinerary of things they wanted to take pictures of, and they structured it out really carefully. I kind of just go with the flow. And I think if you put too much stress and emphasis on sort of just getting it right, that's definitely your choice. But I think for me, Instagram is a very sort of, it could be toxic place sometimes. I think there's so much perfection on it that I think sometimes there's beauty in the imperfection.
Indeed,
and I think
spontaneity.
Exactly, yeah. So I think I've grown my following really because I've remained sort of quite genuine. Obviously my content is maybe the 2% of my life. Like I don't go to lavish dinners and stay at the Ritz every other weekend, but I think I also include things like real life problems or going to therapy or, things that everyone does. Having off days, having a binge at home with, lots of food around Netflix and stuff like that. So
Indeed.
Yeah, so I guess on a trip I would kind of have an idea in my head of what I wanted to take pictures of, maybe plan some outfits and I think I would just really go with the flow with it. Obviously if it's a paid campaign and they want specific deliverables. So for example, BMW, they sent through like a debrief before the trip. And they needed certain pictures of the car in certain angles. They needed to have it sort of in certain durations. They wouldn't be able to have, for example, other brands captured in the content. So obviously I would have to read this and sort of take note of these things that the client would want and wouldn't want. But usually I think it's pretty lax, I'd say. In terms of getting the content approved by the client, it would sort of be a back and forth for about 2 days of just approving certain content, disapproving certain content. But of course, if it's my own, then I just pretty much post whenever I feel like it.
Indeed. Yeah. And let's say with a client shoot, how many photos do you take versus how many then get published?
Well, so if it's a paid partnership, I tend to use my camera. I'd say anything from 100 to 1,000 I take. If it's a full-on week press trip, then it's a lot of sifting through. But if it's sort of just like a small sort of like, let's say, fashion campaign, or I'm just posting sort of my own content for the weekend, then it's pretty much anything from 10 to 50. But usually sort of hotels request to have a folder of images that they can use for their marketing as well. I like to kind of give them more than less. Because then you get work in the future. So
Indeed. No, that's awesome. And look, you mentioned that you've recently left your job. I suppose it's a bit of a time now, to decide actually, do you 10x it? Do you take it to the next level?
Yeah.
What are your sort of future plans?
It's a bit scary. It's exciting. I mean, I basically went to do law. And I mean, I'm sure if any lawyers or law students are listening, it's very competitive. Obviously, coming out of university as a graduate where, you know, you're top of the class and you have sort of this idea in your head of what future that you're going to go into.
Yeah.
I sort of had law in my head for basically just the last 4 years, and I kept getting rejected. I think there kept being obstacles, and I think law school sells you a very false idea about what a career looks like. I think getting a training contract and qualifying straight out of university is very rare and unrealistic.
Indeed.
So I think as I navigated my 20s, I think I realized that your 20s should be the time to kind of trial and error things and find out what you really want.
Yeah.
And I think throughout this whole journey, just certain jobs working out, certain jobs not working out. I was supposed to move to Hong Kong with my last job and it didn't happen because of COVID.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole time, the only thing that was consistent was my blog.
Yes.
And it was almost like an escapism to my boring day job.
Yeah.
Just have that on the side and just, I loved it.
Yeah.
So I think throughout all of this, it's taught me more about what I want in something, and it's not so much doing a job that I think I should be doing or to please my parents or other people. It's what I want to do.
Indeed.
So I think going forward, I want to do something involved in food, hotels, traveling, hospitality, marketing.
Yeah.
I think I'm a very in-person person, so something very personable. I can't do a back office role anymore like I used to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's sort of, I'm taking a bit of time to myself. I'm going traveling this summer.
Yeah.
I'm still doing my blog on the side, but yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah,
and I think I'm just
indeed.
trying to listen to my gut more than just doing what I think I should be doing.
Yeah,
So-
that's it. Yeah, that's fantastic. And look, I think, you know, what you mentioned first off about law school, one of the reasons that I left was because I realized, at least in Australia, let's say that there were, you know, for every one law job, there were 7 law graduates.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was kind of just a commoditized degree relative to what it used to be. And, you know, that hasn't changed the perception of older generations, but for younger people,
Exactly.
you know, we know the truth.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, especially with the rise of AI and just the way that, I mean, there are so many graduates now. I think back when my parents were, you know, my age, being a graduate at a prestigious university and having a, you know, law degree was very sort of rare, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And now there's just been a massive shift more towards, if you think about it, like blue collar jobs, like in hospitality, like executive chefs, construction workers, gardeners, their salaries are massive. Like our
Yeah,
gardener at home is being paid like probably more than like what I was being paid as like as a consultant. And
yeah,
these sort of jobs that can't be replaced by AI with that human touch and that human element.
that's right.
Those are jobs that I think are going to be even more valuable in the future.
Indeed.
So being a paralegal or reviewing documents or working in auditing, like these will all be replaced,
That's right.
in my
that's
opinion.
right.
So I think I'm trying to focus on jobs that not only I enjoy, but also just have that human element that
Yeah,
cannot be replaced by robots. So
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Gone
that's a
off on a
really good
tangent.
point. Yeah, no, but it's an important one because anything which can be outsourced will be replaced by AI, because in order to outsource something, you've got to be very prescriptive about what can or can't happen. And, you know, AI can easily take over some of that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future there.
Absolutely.
But the other thing that you mentioned was, you know, your interest in, being, you know, with people, marketing. And I think that one thing that content creators have is the funnel sort of mindset. You know that there's going to be X amount of people that, you know, that watch it, X amount of people that like it. And in business and, you know, business development, sales, marketing, it's the same. Not everybody that knows your brand is going to purchase from it. And so I think actually that's a really good takeaway, and something I always look for in people when, you know, I'm helping clients make hires in sales and marketing. It's, do they understand the funnel? Because if they don't, then they're going to assume everybody they speak to will lead to a deal.
Yeah.
And
It's not like that at all, is it?
that's right. Yeah.
I think, I mean, there's a massive rise of the influencer and online sort of marketing. I was asked recently to do an interview on the television,
Yes.
and I was just thinking, I have nothing to say, or just maybe I do, but who am I to kind of go on television and be interviewed?
Yeah.
But actually, like the amount of viewers of just broadcasted TV
Yeah.
has, like, in the last sort of like half, I think 2, maybe 5 years, has just completely plummeted.
Yeah.
And there's been a massive shift towards social media.
That's right.
So I think it's not going anywhere. And I think back when I started my Instagram and just my online presence, I didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much significance. And I mean, even for me, I mean, I'm an influencer, but also a consumer.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm looking for. Like, where do I get my recommendations for restaurants, for traveling? I get it from TikTok, Instagram, rather than going on the TV or reading a newspaper.
Yeah.
So I think there's been a big shift from kind of traditional sort of media types more towards your phone, because everyone is looking at it all the time.
That's right.
So it's just kind of about having a different attitude towards social media marketing. And there's a lot of noise on there for sure. But I think it's just about sort of finding your niche and going with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I found that.
Absolutely. And look, Ava, earlier on, you mentioned imposter syndrome. Is that something that, you've had to confront? And how has that changed since you started as opposed to now?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it started definitely in law school. And I think just as a 20-something-year-old, you're always going to feel like maybe you're not good enough, or you shouldn't be in a situation that you're in. But I think everyone feels that to some degree. I think even a few of my best friends they're all lawyers at very good law firms, and they're all very successful. And even they feel like, I'm literally managing a child's life here. Like, I'm not good enough for this. And I think, even especially with my Instagram, like some of the events that I've gone to, like for example, sitting in Wimbledon's like Lavazza suite and having coffee with the Lavazza family and like other celebrities and tennis players there, I'm sitting there thinking, what am I doing here? Or meeting celebrity chefs and I just I think at the start I just thought, okay, this is not forever. I'm just going to kind of wing it and see what happens. And, maybe no one would know who I really am. But actually, like, who I really am is this person. I think I wouldn't be contacted with all these opportunities if I wasn't doing a good job at what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's right.
I wouldn't have 200,000 followers if I wasn't good at what I do.
Yeah.
And it might sound stuck up, but I think it's actually just about owning and just celebrating your own successes.
Indeed.
And I'm not saying I'm full of myself. I think I'm proud of myself for sort of, and especially now, I think I'm most proud of myself for quitting my job that I hated to actually do something that I'm passionate about.
Yes.
I think imposter syndrome comes to everyone at some point in time. Of course, I have days where I'm very, very, I lack confidence, and I just, I'm reluctant to go to events because I just don't feel like that person that that people think I am.
Yeah.
But also, I just think, fake it until you make it.
Indeed. That's it. No, that makes sense. And look, I think, like certainly when I started the podcast, I know I felt like, oh, shivers, like, I'm like, maybe I'm not good enough to invite people, on. But now we've done nearly 50, and it's like, there's still a little bit of, are they going to accept or not? It's a big name, but little by little you see actually like, like the traction's there because maybe it's half decent. So
exactly, yeah. I think during COVID, like I was obviously working from home as everyone else was, and very toxic job, very toxic environment, and my confidence was so low. So I really kind of chose that sort of period of time, sort of in the silence where everyone was at home, just to kind of work on myself and my own just self-confidence. And I really believe that, like, you think, therefore you are.
Yes.
Like, if you have that mindset that you're going to do well and you're going to be successful, you're going to do well and you're going to be successful. Yeah. And I think, I really believe in manifesting as well.
Yeah.
It might sound very voodoo, but I just think it's about a mindset. It's about your mindset. And, just sometimes, I stand in the mirror and I just think, you can do this, you're a boss, and things just happen to go really well.
That's right, yeah. And everyone just needs to focus on what they can control, that growth mindset. I remember it was a couple of weeks ago, I was worried that I might not have a podcast for a particular week. And I don't know if you ever felt that, oh, shivers, I might not have a post for a particular day. And I was like, just take a step back, think about it. You've got, 45 recorded episodes. You can just cut a snippet and post that if you need.
Yeah.
don't worry about what you can't control. Just
Mm-hmm.
worry about what you can control. You know, if a file's corrupt or something, you can't control that. It's out of your hands, you know, but it's easy to fall down that rabbit hole and worry about it. But I think what you said is, you know, really true. Manifest, walk in the dark, and then you'll see something. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, if you look, I mean, I think what I was most scared of was just disappointing and disappointment.
Yeah.
But if you look back in things in life, at things that didn't work out, whether it be like, you know, a failed relationship or a failed job that didn't go the way that you planned, or maybe you were fired, or, for example, for me, my move to Hong Kong didn't happen.
Yeah.
But actually, like, you look back and think, I'm actually in a pretty good place at the moment. And if that had worked out, I wouldn't be where I am.
That's right.
So actually, things always work out. Like right now, I'm thinking, okay, I've just resigned. I'm a bit nervous because I don't know what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I think, especially like, I think if you don't take a risk now, like when will you take it?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
And I think especially going back to the mindset thing that you were talking about, I just think, you know, you suffer twice by worrying about it.
Exactly.
Like you can't control things, so just focus on what's actually tangible.
Indeed. Yeah, very wise words, Ava. And
I feel like Gandhi, but
well, look, I mean, you've got your Gandhi opportunity now, because I'm about to sort of ask what your key takeaways are. What would you share with the audience?
Mm-hmm. So I guess takeaways would just really be, I mean, just learning from the last 7-8 years of my life. I think graduating and pursuing something that I didn't really want to do, but thought I should.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a waste of time. I think you learn something from every situation that you've been in, whether it works or not.
Indeed.
But yeah, just really authenticity. I think just, for example, with my content, I maybe I shouldn't say I wing it. It's just I sort of just go with the flow with these things. But I think just remain true to yourself. And although that sounds very cheesy, I just think people like realness.
Indeed.
Whether it's your own business, your ethos. You know, you want to go sell some socks because you love socks, and, you know, maybe you don't think there's a big enough market and demand for the type of socks that you want to sell.
Yeah.
But somewhere in some country, like, they will see the socks and they will want to buy them.
Yes.
I think there's no point, you know, trying to be a sheep and just following the herd, because there's so many of the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm going back to the point about, you know, for example, a big shift towards blue collar jobs, things that can't be replaced by AI.
That's
because
right.
a lot of the things that people are all doing together, these can be replaced. Or there's so much, there's almost sort of oversupply of these particular things.
Yes.
So just go off and be unique.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in today's day and age, this is all celebrated. So that's definitely one of them. I think just, listen to your gut.
Yes.
Because I think there are so many times in life where I just felt a certain way and just did the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I think just in the last year, I've been trying to listen to my sort of intuition more, and it is right every time.
Yeah.
Every single time, whether it comes to relationships, jobs, situation, just any situation at all, friendships, intuition for sure, listen to it. And also just, I think everyone has, if you ask your friends or whoever else for opinions about things, whether it be job decisions or just big life decisions, everyone has their own perception of how things should be. So ask yourself, and that's all you need to know. Because you know, like, you will always have the right answer.
Yes.
You're only asking other people because you don't want to really answer it yourself.
Indeed.
But just trust yourself. I think that's really one thing that's gotten me to where I am today.
Fantastic. Ava, thanks so much for sharing both your story and your learnings. It's been fantastic, and all the best, you know, with the next steps, you know, regardless of where they take you.
Very exciting. Thank you very much for having me, Lucas.
You're most welcome. Thanks,
Lovely to
Ava.
meet you.
Likewise.